Hey y'all, it's your girl Asia, and I'm back with another video. And today we're gonna be getting into the hair, baby. We're getting into the hair, baby, okay? Because I just messed it all up. Hold on. All right, we getting into the hair today because she's cute or whatever. This is my MICROLOC installation. Today is day 5 and I finally spritzed it. I have a video of that. I don't know if I'm posting it before or after this video, so maybe I'll post it after because that's when I do my lock count as well. But here is the finished product. Okay, let's get into her. Okay, well, first let's get into the journey. Let's get into how we got here, right? So for a while now, I've been wanting locks again. This will be my second set of locks. My first set of locks, I started in 2014 and then I cut them off in 2017. So I had them for 3 years. And after time, well, I was into my curly hair. It was great, loved that. However, after I had a baby, I realized that doing my hair is a task, okay? And most of the time I didn't feel like doing it. I wasn't really taking care of it. Just a whole bunch of different reasons. And I was also, so I was seeing locks just everywhere on my timeline and on my feed. And MICROLOCs was one of those things that caught my eye. Hold on. Oh yeah, MICROLOCs was one of those things that caught my eye, and I kept seeing it, and then I was like, nah, we gonna do that. We gonna do that. So here I am, and here we are. So my last video that I have, you see that I am installing them. First off, mapping out or deciding how I wanted to map out everything was like the hardest part, okay? Let's get into the science of it all, I guess. So first things first, I went back and forth about this, but I finally decided that I was gonna do a middle part all the way to the back. So I decided on that because if I ever wanted to do, you know, like space buns or freaking 2 braids going back or anything like that, anything where my hair is like this, right? I would have a full part, right? I don't know if I split it directly in the middle, but yes, I would have a full part. So that was the first step out of the way. Full part all the way to the back. All right, so I roughly have it parted to how I did before. I'll just show you on one side and hopefully it makes sense when I try to explain it, okay? So what I did was first I parted it down the middle, right? And then I parted it from ear to ear, so around the top. So as if we were to do like a half up, half down. So that would be 4 main sections, right? So down the middle and then across from side to side, which puts it into 4 quadrants, right? Or puts it into quadrants because quad means 4 and yeah, so puts it into quadrants, right? So I started on this back quadrant, part down the middle, and I think this is where the part is from ear to ear, right? So I worked on this quadrant first. Even though I have these 2 straight parts going from front of my head to the nape of my neck and from ear to ear, I still wanted a brick layered pattern within those quadrants because I do have fine low density hair. And you may be looking at my hair like, whatever do you mean? But yes, I do. My hair is fine, meaning that the diameter of each strand is not that big. And low density, meaning that in any given part in my head, there's a certain number of follicles and that number of follicles is low, okay? All right. At any rate, I divided my hair into 4 quadrants and I worked up each quadrant. So this back quadrant was the first quadrant that I worked on. And I don't know how these rows on the bottom are looking because the hair around my perimeter in the back is non-black. But, so it might not be a straight line, but, So I went up And as I went up, I would do, you know, just keep going up. I did my parts like this. So if I separate some here, hopefully that's a straight line and you can see the brick layer. Can you even see that? Oh, yes, maybe. So if you can see that, I did a brick layer within each quadrant. So this is the first rear quadrant, right? After I finished that rear quadrant, I moved on and I finished the other side of the rear, of the back of my head. So as you can see, when I did one side, and to make it even, when I started on the other side, I connected each horizontal part. I continued each horizontal part all the way over to the left side of my head and continued with the brick layer on top. Let me show you. So if I split this here, there is an equal part on the other side, hopefully. Right, so if I split this in the middle, there's an equal part on the other side. You see that, right? And then I also tried to keep the number of locks in each row the same on both halves. For example, if I did this whole one, and if I can't count them because I can't see them, but if this row has 6, I made sure that this row also had 6. Just for the sake of keeping things even. So that's what I did. So once I had 50% of my hair done, which was this back half, I then continued on the front of my head. I got my little hairs out here out the way, so you know, 1, 2, you know. But here's where you gotta follow, okay? So in addition to this being a straight line, this middle part being a straight line, and the side from ear to ear part being a straight line, I continued each row in the back into the front. Let me explain. If I go here, for example, let's say this is the part here, there should be an equal, well, let's say there's a part here, there should be an equal section right here. So you can get a visual of what I mean. Let me put on my glasses. All right, hopefully this makes sense. And hopefully I picked a good part, but I continued each part on the front, for the most part, from the horizontal part in the back quadrant. So I went from here to here. So I continued each row like that all the way up in the front, connecting them to the back. And within each of these, I did a brick layer pattern going this way within this side section of my head, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I did the same thing on the left side. So on the left side, if you look, it'll be a part going this way, right? And then there should be a corresponding part in this rear quadrant. So because I lined it up, it might not be perfect, so don't come at me, but because I lined it up like that, technically speaking, if a part starts here, it technically goes all the way around my head, right? I tried my best to make the same number of locks on the front quadrants, but I realized, especially when it came to like my postpartum shedding and stuff like that, some of the rows have less on one side than they do on the other, which I don't really care about, but that's just how it ended up. And yeah, so that's how I did that. Then I got to a point, I'd say, I'll insert a picture, but I'd say about here, right? I got to a point where I had a section like this where it was coming in and the front part was smaller than what I had in the back. So they were kind of like triangles or V's. I'll insert a picture here of what that looked like. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with these parts? What am I supposed to do with these parts? Like, how? I don't have enough to make a full straight line. Like, it's not even, right? It's not equal, which I'm not too worried about. So I made it work, okay? So as you can see, the ones that meet here, they're not like the ones that are everywhere else in my head. So what I did was, this is gonna be really hard to explain. Oh gosh, should I even bother? I'm gonna do it for my DIY girlies. Okay, I'm gonna do it for my DIY girlies. I'm gonna explain for y'all because this is about to get hectic. All right, so let's say I had this much left, right? What I did was I still continued each row from matching what was in the back of my head. And I continued each row, but what I would do is I would continue the curve. So as I kept going up from here all the way to the middle, each end of the curve would meet further and further up the middle part, right? So I would just make the last twist or the last lock in that row. I was building the middle part by doing that, if that makes sense. Hold on. So for example, if I part this like this, right? You can see here for the last maybe 3 rows or so, I went from the back up here, and as you can see, it ends here. So it doesn't end here at the end of my hairline, it ends in the middle part. And what I did was, each of those parts leading up to it, they're not squares, they're more like triangles. But that's what I did for the rows leading up to the middle part. I kept going, and as I did that, I kept going, moving up and up, and until I ended up with this little section that was enough for a row. Not a full row, obviously, but it ends in the middle of the middle part here, and I have 5 in this section. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. I can't explain it any other way, and I'm sorry if that sounded wild, but I tried to show you as well, so hopefully it makes a little bit more sense. And then, so the time it took me 8 days to do it, but I did not work on it every single day. The first night after I finished this first quadrant, I was like, yeah, I need a break, okay? I need a break. And I didn't touch it for maybe another like 3 days. I literally went to work with my 4 sections and twists, and the one done section in the back, I put it in a ponytail and I put a hat on. I was like, I called it a day. That was it, period. So after that, then I started to work on it because I went to work, and yeah. So I started to work on it a little bit every day until I was done. So it took me a total of 8 days, and each shift was about 4 to 5 hours, depending on what I was working with on that day. But that would be the average. And then I'd say I worked on it maybe 5 days in total. So I'd say about 20-ish hours. That seems about right. About 20-ish hours it took me to do it by myself. I had a little bit of help from my partner, from Bae, because he helped me when I was making connections in the back for my parts. Even though I had the 3-way mirror, I just wanted him to look at it real quick, because looking at three-way mirror, your eyes get strained. I'm seeing double, and I'm like, I don't even know if what I'm looking at is real. So that's what he helped me with for a couple rows, and then after that, I may do what I just did it by myself. But yeah, so anyways, and then we're here today with the MICROLOCs. I finally wet them. Today was the first day I wet them because I wanted to make sure this is what I wanted. Also, because when doing, you need to know that if you're deciding to do this on your own, that you may come to a point where you might have to take out a few rows and redo it, okay? Because when I got to the back here, I was almost done with the first quadrant, right? I had maybe like this much left. And I realized when I was examining it that the parts, the rows at the top part of this quadrant up here, the parts got bigger than they were at the bottom. And I was like, this is technically a permanent style. If I was doing it temporarily, I wouldn't really care, but it's a permanent style. And I want it to be more or less even, not so much perfect as much as even and consistent throughout when it comes to the sizes. So I was like, I took out 6 rows and I redid all of them. And I was just like, that took a lot of me, but I'm happy I did it because here I am today. There are some parts of my hair that I didn't know if I wanted to lock or not. So for example, if you come over here, this part, for example, right? I did have a twist in there at first. And then, so I had a twist in there at first, but it had come out. And this part of my hair, as you can see, is real soft and smooth and damn near 2C, okay? So if you take a look, it's more wavy. When you wet it, it gets curly, but yeah. So it kept coming out. So I did not interlock these twists yet. I did not do that because I wanted to be 100% sure. I mean, at this point, I'm pretty committed I know I want locks. I'm committed to how they turned out. Because that was the thing. I in case I wanted to do anything over, I didn't want to have to struggle with undoing an interlock at the root if I had to redo a row or redo a section, etc., etc. But at this point, I'm pretty married to how this is gonna look, and I'm actually pretty excited because look at these, they're so cute. Oh my god. So as you can see, even in this one section alone, or this one row, if you look back there compared to here, you can see the ones in my right hand here are thicker than the ones in my left hand, even though the parts are roughly the same size. So that goes to show that even on one head, density or even the texture of your hair in certain areas can change from one area to the next. So keep that in mind when you're doing your hair. Also keep in mind that your hair, you see all these photos, all these videos, your hair might not look like the inspiration content that you've seen. It may come out different. And guess what? That's okay. That is completely okay. All right? It is your hair, it is your journey. You have to trust the process and they will get to where they need to go. Okay? They will take you where you need to go. So with that being said, the way that my hair is, when I first did the twist, well, my hair in a dry state is different than in a wet, curly state. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, well, I guess it makes sense. Cause look, when I did my hair, I started it on blow dried hair, which makes sense cause it's straightened. Okay, I'm probably overthinking this. So I started my MICROLOCs on blow dried hair because it was just easier to part, easier to manage at the time. And I kept it, I didn't wet it up until today. So for the first 5 days, I did not wet it. It was cool, it was cute, because I wanted to keep my length or whatever. But I will say now, after I wet it today, I should have did this a while ago because it has now filled out. As you can see when I part it, ooh, you see scalp, right? But when it's laying flat, it has filled out those gaps, if you will. And now the bottoms, they're curly, they look more cohesive with the whole entire style. So I'd say I'm happy. I'd say they turned out well. And the color, I love the color. I haven't dyed my hair all the way red, all the way to the root since high school. Because even when I started dyeing it red again a few years ago, I just did it up to like an inch away from my root, just because I didn't feel like dealing with the growing out process and touching up and things like that. So I dyed my hair up to the root like 2 weeks ago. And as you can see, we have a whole bunch of new growth, okay? I mean, I'm not mad at it, don't get me wrong, but... And then I also had some trial and error with the front, the root, just the roots in general with the color, because it was really, 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 really bright here. And I fixed it. And because my hair is growing out now, it's like toning down and going better with my skin tone, and we're not looking like clowns out here in the street, okay? But anyways, this is how my hair turned out. It's so light and fluffy now. And when I say I wet it, I just mean I misted it. I should be specific. I misted it with water. I just misted. So right now it's almost completely dry actually. So I didn't really have to braid it or anything to keep it from shrinking, which is cool. I didn't soak them, so I just misted them with water just to, you know, pull the look together, right? In the meantime, let's just get into the hair, okay?